When I came back to England in 1976, after 3.5 years in Australia, the National Front had suddenly become, in parts of East London and Tower Hamlets were getting 19% of the vote. There was a real chance that punk music as it arrived and youth culture could have moved easily to the right and become nihilistic and racist and fascist. That fight that we had wasn't just, it was very much a fight with music, and bringing reggae and punk together in particular. And it was ironic that skinheads were the first white people to like reggae, even though they were racist. And it was just one of the mad contradictions about it. They really were into ska in particular, and blue beat. And it's suddenly, they were quite an important constituency. And as we always said in Rock Against Racism, racism is a white problem, in the sense that it's a problem that we have to solve. White people have to be changed. They've got to change their heads and the arguments. And so we had to address those skinheads. We couldn't ignore them. We couldn't just dismiss them and get rid of them. We had to engage with the debate. That's why I got involved and met a photographer called Red Saunders with Rock Against Racism. And so most of these pictures were taken really for a magazine which we produced called Temporary Hoarding. I was very keen to do pictures and portraits of people who really Ra was addressing. The photography on the left at that particular time was utterly dominated by organisations like Report, who were run by a man called Simon Gutman. Simon Gutman used to be a picture editor on Picture Post. He had taken that sort of Cartier-Bresson idea of the decisive moment as a sort of act of faith, a treatise, if you know what I mean. It was something by which he was obsessed. His idea of a great photograph was a demonstration with somebody with their mouth open shouting with a fist in their air. And I was utterly opposed to this. I said, there's no subtlety. So there's no understanding about people and the complexity and relationships between people. And they don't tell you anything. All they tell you about is the photographer, not about what's actually happening. So many of those photographers took the picture before they even got there. He didn't like me at all. I mean, not on a personal level, but he didn't like my work at all. He thought it would, he'd say, no, these are posed. I don't like, he'd look at a picture like this and he'd say, yes, they're looking straight at the camera, they're posed. And I'd go, yes, they are, but that doesn't mean it's not a real photograph. Setting people up and people is so much a part of the history of photography. So most of these were, like certainly my visits to Northern Ireland, for example, were always part of pictures for Temporary Hoarding. And the Ra gigs were also used for temporary. And how can I describe it? I don't think at that time that I realised that I was actually putting together a narrative. It was just that I always carried my cameras and took photographs all the time. It's only really Carol, tells you that Carol Tulloch, who's actually my wife, who kept saying to me, look, you should put these together, they're really fantastic, I like these. And I said, yeah, but there's all sorts, some are portraits, some are gig shots, and she said, but it's a story, this is a whole collection. So really, at the time, you were too close to it to actually think of them as being that's of any significance. It was something I was involved with and we were living, rather than just, I wasn't an outsider, it was a sort of insider's view. And the National Front organised this thing called the Mugging March in Lewisham. That was the first time we went along with Rock Against Racism. We made these lollipops with the Ra logo, which Dave King designed. That was the big event which kicked off, in a way, Rock Against Racism. That's Clifton Rise in Lewisham. That's Darkest How on the megaphone. That was 1977. Those girls who attacked the National Front March, and they've got one of the Honour Guard Union Jacks with its gold braid round the edge, and that's what she's holding up. They actually torn it up, and she was holding it up in triumph. That was the first time in mainland Britain that riot shields had ever been used, and that was literally the first sight of them. They just suddenly gotten out this van and did this thing across the road. None of us had ever, I mean I had, because I'd been to Northern Ireland, but it was an incredible battle that day, and it really, I mean, there was a lot of fighting, a lot of there were flares with people were throwing at the police. I remember that because I fell over. Because I charged the horses. I remember getting back just feeling absolutely worn out, because I'd run with 2 Nikons and bag of lenses for an entire day, being chased by police. And that was quite a very important day in the development of the ideas of Rock Against Racism. And after that, we got so many people contacted us saying, look, we want to put our 2 bobs worth in, we want to get involved in this, we think it's a great idea. And it really took off from then. It's a wonderful story in a way, what happened that day of 29th of April 1978. We decided we wanted to put on a big concert, and we contacted the Anti-Nazi League and suggested we did a joint thing because they had much more financial support, and Tom Robinson in particular and Steel Pulse both said they'd do it. The Anti-Nazi League lived in a slightly different world than we did, in the sense that said, oh yeah, they were very much more political in the sense of orthodox political. And they said, yes, we'll get a lorry and do it on the back of a lorry. And we went, no, we've got this idea. We want to build a stage and do a sort of Woodstock, to do a big outdoor concert. And we managed to get help from, we rang everybody we knew. We called in sort of favours from people like Gerard Mankiewicz, and he knew everybody in the music business, and he put us in touch with The Who lent us the PA system. Pete Townsend, Polystyrene got involved. She said she wanted to do it, and then shortly before the carnival, after we'd put the posters up everywhere, about 2 weeks, the Clash suddenly rang up. Bernie Rhodes, who was the manager of the Clash, rang up and said, look, I want to have a meeting with you. And we had this meeting with the Clash, and they said they wanted to do it. What we decided to do was that, based really, we called it Carnival because we wanted it to be like Carnival, and we hired, I think we had 12 trucks with bands on trucks, and we said what we wanted to do was to march from Trafalgar Square to Victoria Park, which is 7 miles. And everybody said, you're completely bonkers, nobody will march from Trafalgar Square, it's too far. And we said, yes, we will, because we'll make it a carnival, we'll just take over the whole street, we'll do ridiculous things like have stilt men and clowns, and Virgin gave us, I think it was 100,000 whistles, plastic whistles, and we wanted to make it into something quite different. It wasn't going to be a sort of dour political demonstration, it was meant to be a festival against the National Front and against racism.